Have you ever stopped and, really thought about why that coffee costs one thing here, something totally different across the street?
Hmm.
Or like why a new phone starts super expensive and then boom, the price drops a few months later?
Yeah, it seems random sometimes, but it's really not.
It's definitely not arbitrary.
Hmm.
There's a whole load of strategy behind those price tags. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this. It's all about strategic pricing, setting product value, and maximizing profit. We've gone through a bunch of material on this really crucial business topic and pulled out the key stuff for you. Our mission really is to unpack all the different ways businesses decide what to charge. Why can some brands ask for so much more? What happens if you get the price wrong, too low or too high? And we'll get into the psychology and the competitive games that are played. Okay, let's dive in. This fundamental challenge of pricing. We talk about the 7 Ps of marketing, right? And price feels like, well, maybe the toughest one. Why is it so hard for businesses to nail down that correct price?
It really is a balancing act. I mean, you set it too high, and
Yeah.
maybe you lose sales, right? Unless your product is genuinely obviously better.
Right.
But then you go too low, and suddenly customers might think it's, cheap and nasty.
Yeah, you devalue it.
Exactly. Or worse, you don't even cover your own costs. It's a tightrope.
Okay, so thinking about that higher end,
Hmm.
what lets certain brands, say North Face, command those premium prices when maybe a similar looking jacket is much cheaper elsewhere?
Well, that's where product differentiation really comes into play. It's fascinating, actually.
Okay.
When a product has something unique, something valuable, or just, different from the competition, the business gets more pricing power. They can usually charge more.
Like designer label.
Designer labels are the classic example, yeah. They get higher prices than, say, a store brand like Target or Kmart, purely because they're perceived as different, as having that brand value.
Mhm.
But it's not just about the features. The market itself matters too. How much product is out there? How many people want it? That supply and demand dynamic is still huge. Differentiation is key, but it exists within that broader market context.
That makes sense. So if a brand builds that differentiation, maybe through quality or image, but then doesn't keep it up,
Mhm.
what happens? Does that power just vanish?
Oh, absolutely. It can erode really quickly. Differentiation isn't a one-off thing. You have to keep innovating, keep the quality high, keep telling people why you're different.
Right.
If you just sit back, competitors catch up, maybe even leapfrog you, and suddenly that premium price, it just doesn't hold up anymore. Customers won't pay it.
Okay, crystal clear on differentiation.
Mm.
So now we understand why some can charge more.
Right.
But how do businesses actually, calculate or decide on the number itself? Let's look at some basic methods.
Okay, one very common starting point is the recommended retail price, the RRP.
Ah, yeah, you see that on tags sometimes.
Exactly. It's basically a price suggested by the supplier, the wholesaler or manufacturer to the shop selling it.
But it is just a suggestion, right? I remember hearing it's actually illegal for a manufacturer to force a shop to sell at a specific price. Why is that so important?
That's spot on. It is illegal for them to dictate the final price to the public, and that's crucial because it keeps competition fair. It lets the retailer adjust based on their own local market, their own costs, maybe clear stock if they need to.
Okay.
So yeah, ROP is useful guidance, especially if you're a new business maybe, gives you a ballpark figure,
Yeah.
but it's definitely not a rule they have to follow. Then there's another common method, especially for bigger retail stores, percentage markups.
Right.
They just take the price they paid for the item, the cost price, and add a fixed percentage on top to get the selling price.
Okay, so simple example. Sports store buys a tennis racket for $200.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a 100% markup, they sell it for $400. But hang on, that $200 difference, that markup, that's not all profit, is it?
Not at all. And it's a really important point. That percentage markup has to cover everything.
Like rent, staff.
Exactly. Rent, salaries, electricity, marketing, insurance, all the operational costs. So maybe in that 100% markup example, maybe 80% of that $200 increase is just covering those costs,
Wow, okay.
which leaves only, say, 20% or $40 in that case as the actual net profit on that specific sale. It shows pricing isn't just about the item, it's about keeping the whole business running.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay, we've looked at internal calculations, product value. Let's shift gears a bit. How do businesses react to what's happening around them? Pricing, based on the market itself.
Right. Well, often you'll see businesses playing follow the leader. They watch what a key competitor is charging, especially for similar products, and kind of match it or position themselves relative to it.
So there's a price leader.
Yeah, often there is, implicitly anyway. Think about shops in a mall selling, I don't know, similar shoes. One store, maybe the biggest or most aggressive one, often sets the pace, and others react.
So that means businesses have to be constantly tweaking things, running specials, weekly deals, just to stay in the game. What does that constant adjustment mean for them?
It means pricing is rarely set and forget. You have to be agile. And yeah, it often means tighter profit margins because everyone's competing.
Uh-huh.
But the flip side is, if you don't stay competitive on price for similar items, you risk losing customers pretty quickly. So it's often a necessity just to stay relevant. Then there's a fascinating strategy. Pricing based on what the market will bear.
Right.
This is basically letting the customers collectively decide the value. The clearest example is an auction.
Ah, right, like for a house or art.
Exactly. A house, a painting, a racehorse. The bidders compete, and their willingness to pay sets the final price. The market decides.
Okay, auctions make sense for unique items,
Right.
but most businesses aren't running auctions for, coffee or clothes. How do they figure out what the market will bear without an actual auction?
It sounds a bit like sticking a finger in the wind. Huh. It can feel like that, but it's usually more systematic, especially for businesses that are serious about it.
Yeah.
It involves a lot of observation and, increasingly, data.
Okay, how so?
Well, they might test different price points online using A/B testing, for example, or run small trials in specific locations. They might use customer surveys or focus groups before a big launch.
Okay, testing the waters.
Exactly. It's about gathering feedback, watching sales data very closely at different price points, listening to customers, watching competitors, tracking trends. And yeah, experienced business owners develop a feel for it too. Think about ski resorts accommodation prices skyrocket in winter compared to summer. That's purely based on demand, on what the market will bear seasonally. You have to be ready to adjust.
We mostly talked about physical products. What about services?
Yeah.
Where it's not just materials, but time, skill, maybe every job is different. A standard price doesn't always work, does it?
No, you're absolutely right. Services can be much trickier. Think of
Right.
a car mechanic or maybe a graphic designer. The time, the parts, the complexity, it can vary hugely from one job to the next. So in those cases, prepare a specific quote is often the way to go.
An estimate up front.
Exactly. An estimate of the likely costs for that specific job plus their profit margin. And that quote can sometimes be a starting point for discussion, for negotiation between the business and the customer too. It acknowledges the uniqueness of the service.
Okay, these next few strategies feel, well, maybe a bit more deliberate in trying to influence how we think as customers. More psychological, perhaps?
Yeah, you could say that. Take price skimming. This is when a company launches a new product at a really high price.
Mm-hmm.
They know the early adopters, the real enthusiasts, will pay that premium just to have it first. Then, once that initial demand is met, they gradually lower the price to attract more mainstream price-conscious buyers.
Can you give an example? Where do we see price skimming most often? Is it mainly tech?
Tech is a classic example, absolutely. Remember when the first smart TVs with all the new web features came out?
Oh, yeah, they were expensive.
Exactly, they carried a premium price. But over time, as more people bought them, as manufacturing got cheaper, the price came down significantly. Skimming lets companies get back their R&D investment quickly from those who value being first. Then there's the opposite strategy, penetration pricing.
Okay.
Here, you launch a new product, especially one people aren't familiar with, at a deliberately low price.
Why do that?
The goal is to grab attention, get lots of people to try it quickly, build market share fast. It's also used by new companies trying to break into a market where there are already big established players. You undercut them to steal customers initially.
Okay, this next one. Premium pricing. It sounds almost counterintuitive. Setting an artificially high price. What's the actual goal there?
It's purely about perception and prestige. The high price itself is the signal
A signal of what?
of quality, exclusivity, luxury, superior craftsmanship. It suggests to the potential buyer, this is better than the cheaper options. Think high-end watches, luxury cars, certain types of food or wine. The price creates part of the value perception.
Right, I get it. And then there's bundle pricing. We see this everywhere, right? Getting a meal deal or a package. How does that work strategically?
Yep, price bundling is super common. Selling a package of things, goods or services for less than you'd pay if you bought each item separately.
Like fast food meals or phone and internet packages.
Exactly those, the strategy. Well, it encourages you to buy more items than you might have otherwise. It increases the average sale value. Plus, it can be a way to introduce customers to less popular products by bundling them with popular ones.
And the last one, Psychological pricing.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, this one gets me every time. The classic $19.99 instead of $20.
Huh. It works, doesn't it? It's incredibly common.
It really does, even though I know it's basically the same.
That's the point.
Yeah.
It makes the price look significantly less than it is, appealing to that emotional, instinctive reaction rather than pure logic. That little visual trick of seeing the 19 instead of the 20 just frames it differently in our minds. We perceive it as being in the teens range, which feels like a better deal. It leverages those mental shortcuts we all use.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from basic markups to these quite sophisticated psychological tactics. If we pull it all together, what's the big takeaway for you listening, whether you're just trying to be a savvier consumer or maybe thinking about starting your own thing?
Well, stepping back, I think it highlights a few core truths. Every business is selling something, a product, a service, maybe an experience, or even just information.
Right.
And they're all trying to build a brand to differentiate themselves somehow. That's crucial. But ultimately, pricing isn't just about making a sale or covering costs. It's a really powerful strategic lever for maximizing profit over the long haul. Getting that pricing strategy right, it's absolutely fundamental to whether a business sinks or swims.
It really is amazing when you stop and think about how much goes into that number on the tag. It's so much more than just, cost plus a bit for profit. It's strategy, it's psychology, it's competition. So here's something to think about. Next time you're shopping, online or in a store, look at the price. Can you guess the strategy behind it? Is it skimming, penetration, premium, psychological? And what other subtle messages about value or quality are businesses sending that maybe you've never really paid attention to before?